All right, here's the thing. We all know there's a truth out there. And the truth right now that we're going to have a quick conversation about is the fact that there are three types of people. And we all fall into one of these three types. And I'm curious which one you identify with at 35270. That's the Consultants of North Dakota Text Club. Because, we're just, we're exiting that lunch period. And some people decide to go out, grab lunch, bring it on back to the office. And sometimes there's stories to be had there. There are three types of people, though. If you, for example, discover something in your order that you got from a fast food joint and you bring back to the office, and then after about partway through, maybe just even at the beginning part, that something that is not supposed to be a part of that meal is there. It's something that might not even be food related. My question for you, there's three types of people here. You have the person that's going to get back in their vehicle and return that meal, say, hey, look, there was a piece of plastic in here. So you got the returner individual. Number two is the person that is going to complain about it and simply throw it away. No more questions asked. They're probably going to go to the vending machine. Are you that person? Or are you the third? Are you the finisher? Because those are the three types. You got somebody that's going to say, you know what, you got to go return this thing and get your monies back, or just get another order and to have it replaced. You're going to either just throw it away, go get something else from the vending, or you suck it up and you finish that thing. I'm curious which one you are, because I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, all times, hands down, I'm the passive aggressive. I'm going to throw that away and I'll go get the scotcheroo out of the vending machine. That's where I fit. I just learned that at least one of my coworkers certainly is not that. In fact, they're going to just suck it up and finish it. And I don't know how I feel about it. Slightly impressed, kind of grossed out. I just know that I find myself in the passive aggressive. I'm going to throw it. I'm not going to return it. I'm certainly not going to go back into the vehicle, take all the time to go and get my, $7 back? I don't actually, the cost of inflation, we better say, we'll say $15. How much is it for a Happy Meal these days? You go, all right, just this is not where the place came from. So don't think that it's just, let's say you want to go and get your Big Mac. You want to go get that number one from McDonald's. You get your Big Mac, you get your medium fry, your medium pop. How much is that now? Clearly I haven't had my Mac attack in quite some time. Eric Johnson's my producer. I'm Tyler.
Yeah,
Raxis,
I was just thinking to myself, I don't know, because if I'm spending under $15, I'm not even really noticing it.
I'm eating the expense. I'm not.
Yep.
Gonna go and get it at the exchange. I'm throwing it away. I'm getting a Pop-Tart, a bag of the chili cheese Fritos.
Yep.
I mean, I will. I am done with it, but I ain't finishing it. That's the last one. If I had to rank, it's throw, return, then finish.
Yes. Yeah, the only exception to that is if you yourself made it.
Yeah, then all bets are off.
Yeah.
Or somebody in the house. I mean,
right.
I could.
But if it's coming from a restaurant.
If I'm exchanging cash or I'm swiping my card for that, yeah, it's a whole different ball game there if you find something that doesn't belong in there. 35270. Which one are you? Return, throw, or finisher? Tyler, I'm a finisher. My girlfriend is a complainer, so she will always send it back. Okay, so the complainer that sends it back. See, even if I'm at the restaurant, there has been very few times. I'm like, they've had to screw up so royally that I've, hey, look, I know I ordered this, or there's something not here. What? Other than that, I'm just not there. Tyler, mostly number two, depending on the foreign object. You're a thrower. My immune system is strong. Comes in as well. So you're a finisher. I appreciate it. Okay, there's all types in the text club. We learn a lot about each other from time to time when we are forced to work with one another. And it was eye-popping to me to see, without hesitation, just going back for more from the individual whom I'm not going to name names, but they have a show earlier in the lineup here on KFGO. 237-5948. That's the Lady Studio line. Of course, the Consultants of North Dakota Text Club, which many of you choose to communicate with, which I appreciate is at 35270. Broadcasting all day from the Gunderson studio. I want to thank them for providing us this space to go ahead and visit with you, and we're going to be doing a lot of that today. Those phone numbers, that text club, I want you to keep that in mind because of the topics. This could be any one of you. Now, we're going to start off in just a little bit by visiting with our friends up in Grand Forks, Frank Matichek, Greg Spicer. If you missed our conversation with these two individuals, was it probably a month ago? If not, maybe a little bit longer. Wherever you get your podcasts, just look up Afternoons Live. You can look up their names and have kind of a refresher on that. Greg Spicer owns a business in the Falkner Township. Now, this Fufang proposal and what was decided last night by the Grand Forks City Council, which is within their legal right to do, according to state law, is they're going to annex part of that Falkner Township. I think they get a 2-mile stretch around the city to where they can claim that territory to be a part of the city. So you've got that annexation now at least meeting its first step, of which there are going to be more that are needed to be met. And the way Greg responded to our questioning the last time was that his biggest concern is taxation when it comes to having to pay for some of the infrastructure that's going to be required and necessary for this corn plant to operate. For the rail, for the roads, the water, all that stuff is going to have to be paid for somehow, and certainly got a sweetheart deal from the state. I don't think there's any denying that, this company in Fufang, but not all of it's going to be paid that way. So we're going to visit with him about that. Also, Frank Matichek, part of that Falkner Township. I mean, he's one of those leaders up there, appointed or elected or just, a good all-around guy that's taking the concerns of his residents and his neighbors and making sure people hear it. Unfortunately, the way I've been having this conversation with you is the fact that this has started so late in the game, and it really has that sense, as though all those that are in the decision-making process that are saying we've got to have this had pushed this ball so far along to where it was at the point where, you can't really undo what's already been agreed to. And I think that the city council proved that last night. All the fears, all the concerns that these residents had that call Grand Forks, that call Falkner Township their home, saying, why didn't we hear about this until it's at this point? Well, they went around and gathered signatures, and they got rejected. And even last night, with all the concerns, all the commentary, they still got rejected again. Now, here's what's telling for me on some of this that's going on here, is there are people whom I consider friends up in Grand Forks that are in elected office, and when you reach out, boy, they're usually quick to get back to you on certain things. Not this time. Not on this project, and that speaks volumes no matter how quiet they have been about wanting to speak about this. Now, I do think that equates to a couple of things. One, probably on the opposite side of where I sit on this, as far as the approach that has been. But also, some of those people I do think missed out on their responsibility and their opportunity to lead in this situation. They haven't done so, or at least I haven't seen any of that to a public extent. So that's coming up in a little bit here. Also, we've got a couple of other things. I told you at the top of the hour, it was Sarah Heinrich. She's one of the best in the biz, our farm and ranch director here. Well, she's also a rancher. She's got the operations, her and her family out in Medina, and they've had it worse than we have here where I'm sitting in Fargo. And certainly if you go north and west, they've had it worse when it comes to the accumulation of snow. Well, what does that mean? When you get 4 feet of snow in a given area out in the Minot, part of the state, and you've got cattle that you might not be able to reach. I'm curious where we are at. Have we heard how many that have been lost as far as calves, as far as cattle? How much time do we have to report if you need to your NDSU extension, the indemnity, all of that stuff? We're going to have that conversation. Whatever else you want to get off your chest, whether that's mask mandates, getting the kibosh, it's all on the table. Elon Musk, it doesn't matter to me. You me this microphone, your cell phone, 237-5948. That's Laney's studio line. I do see messages coming in to our iConsultants of North Dakota text club at 35270. I'm coming back to those right after this here on KFGO. text club at 35270. Yeah, which type are you? There's 3 of us out in the world. If there's something in your food, you either return it, you throw it, or you just finish it. And message has been continuing to come in to the iConsults of North Dakota Text Club. Tyler, depends on what it is. Something bad, I'll complain. If it's not dangerous, gross, I'd eat it. Now, my coworker was convinced that it was a sliver of plastic. However, to me, and I'll let you be the judge of which one's worse. I mean, for those of us that have just a little bit of gray hair, some of us more than others, it's a thicker hair. I'm convinced that it was that instead of a piece of plastic, but she's got herself convinced. Oh, I'm starting to give out identities here. I'm not going to finish. So they're going to go ahead and keep in their mind that it was plastic and continue to eat what they were doing. Tyler, I'd throw it, but call the business and let them know. And they replace it with a coupon with your name on it for next time you visit. It works. I would have never considered that. Thanks. Now everyone else can consider that the next time that they, unfortunately, probably have to deal with that again. It was just one of those, again, no idea what you're going to learn about your coworkers every now and then. We're talking about Minot. We're going to head up there or visit about their situation here in the next hour with Sarah Heinrich because of just, when you got 48 inches of fresh snow, heavy snow, wet snow, sure, we need the moisture, but we would have preferred getting that moisture, obviously, in the form of rain than what we have now and what it does to prevent these ranchers to get to their livestock. One thing I saw, though, that from the city that got my gears turning about some of the gripes I've had in Fargo here. No, we're not going down the Snowgate situation. I know we've talked about that at length, and people have given the reasons why it does work, why it doesn't work. But downtown, there's one thing that is very noticeable, and we always have press releases here in downtown. Now, I hope we don't have to deal with this again until next winter, but who knows the way that this one has been going. Might not put out there, and this I saw on Facebook, so I really hope that this is official, is that they're calling on people that are parking on the streets in downtown Minot, start using their parking garages because they're clear and they're going to be free for the next 11 days. Great idea. Now, I don't know the variables here, whether or not those parking garages in downtown Minot are owned by the city versus what the situation is in downtown Fargo here. But taking what is working in other parts and in other communities and adapting that, or at least learning a little bit more on whether it worked or not, I really hope that if this does work, you clear it up, you provide it for free for a few days so you can remove the snow the biggest factor in downtown Fargo that is, I think, frustrated a number of people during the winter is the fact that you've got the snow that's accumulated. There's just no place to put it. And then when you get the daytime traffic out there, you've got the blockage of people being able to go down there and do their job of removing it. You offer something like this in the number of parking garages that we have down there, and if they're privately owned, you know what? Wouldn't it make sense for tax dollars going towards paying that instead of, we're going to put out this press release, and then we're going to go out and tow these vehicles that have not been removed? It was just something that caught my attention. City of Fargo, if you haven't considered this, I really hope that you do in the next year ahead. Just something that if it could probably get the snow removed quicker this during the day, so we're not waiting until some of that free parking at night. Consider it is all I ask of you. 237-5948-35270. Here's what's coming up. I already told you we're heading up to Grand Forks. I would love to get your thoughts on this because you had a 6-hour City Hall conversation last night. Not all of it about the planning and zoning of this proposed wet cornmeal plant. That's from the Fufang Group. And now you've had more public appearances, more public comments from the business on this side than you had at the beginning part. Again, I'm going to reiterate one more time, and we're going to hear from the boys up there that have been on this show before, is why so late into this process? And I think that's what you've been hearing through our KFGO news updates is people saying, hey, are we in this as a union? Are we in this together? Because it doesn't feel like it if we're just the average Joe or Jane walking the streets, making a living, calling this place home. Now, that's been one of the biggest problems I've had with this and other things has been the process of it. And that's what I've been so focused on this for, because even when they were just asking questions as far as those residents wanting some answers, they weren't upfront with those answers, and now the process has moved so far along as to the appearance that it's too late to do anything about it. And last night pretty much put that nail on the coffin for me. It seems like the writing's on the wall. I'm curious from the crew up there whether or not there is anything else that they can do to have their concerns addressed, or if it's just going to be shoved in their backyard and they're just going to have to deal with it. My question is, would you want to be living in a community, or would you reelect a commissioner or a mayor that's doing this to you without listening to you? You can answer me at 35270. When we come back, Frank Matichek, Greg Spicer, we're up to the Faulkner Township to get the latest of Grand Forks situation right after this on KFGO.
News and weather this hour brought to you by Muscatel Pre-Owned. Muscatel's was voted #1 by localsloveus.com for good reason. So stop in today to Muscatel Pre-Owned, just off of Exit 1 in Moorhead.
Mostly cloudy and 39. I'm Paul Juergens. For the first time in nearly 2 years, masks are no longer required at airports across the country. And after a federal judge struck down a national public transportation mask mandate. Fargo Airport Authority Executive Director Sean Doberstein says they got the word from the TSA last night.
We received our official notice. The security directive that was put in place by the TSA at airports across the country was no longer in effect.
And Doberstein says there was a sense of relief at the airport, both amongst airport and TSA employees who were charged with mask-wearing enforcement, which was at times a source of conflict, as well as for flyers.
There's a lot of appreciative passengers, I guess, if you will, so it went over real well.
A collision between a semi and a van on I-94 east of Moorhead this morning. It happened after 10 in the eastbound lane west of the Highway 336 interchange. State Patrol Sergeant Jesse Grabo tells KFGO News there were injuries, but it's not believed they were life-threatening. Grabo says the semi was headed west when it crossed the median and rolled onto the van that was eastbound. The semi ended up on its side. Mostly cloudy, 39. This is KFGO News. .39, mostly cloudy. This is KFGO News. A Horace man has been sentenced to 5 years in prison for a series of business burglaries in West Fargo and elsewhere in Cass County. A district judge sentenced 24-year-old Shelby Witt after he pleaded guilty to 20 burglaries. The break-ins took place over several months. Witt was arrested in March. Assistant Cass County State's Attorney Kim Hagvik says Witt was cooperative during the investigation, leading to the closing of several unsolved burglaries and the identity of additional suspects. The case was investigated by West Fargo and Fargo Police and the Cass County Sheriff's Office. West Fargo Police Chief Dennis Iderness has released the department's 2021 report. He says despite a slight increase in crimes against persons, there was an 8% drop in overall crime compared to 2020 and a 10% drop in property crimes since then.
With over 28,000 calls for service, the department continues to see a decrease in overall crime even as the city continues to grow. Our officers have worked tirelessly day in and day out to meet the growing needs of our community. And through the support of our community, we're continuing to see a decrease in overall crime. And we remain significantly below the reported 6-year crime average.
Otterness says last year the department hired 4 additional officers and now has 69 sworn officers. That includes 3 K-9 units, 13 civilian employees, and 7 volunteers. The State Patrol has identified a man who died of injuries in a snowmobile crash over the weekend. It's 59-year-old Bradley Patzer of Harvey. It happened near Harvey. Patzer was test driving a snowmobile when he hit a berm of packed ice and snow. The future of Minot State University's sports bubble is up in the air after last week's blizzard caused it to collapse. The university was forced to cancel all the activities that were scheduled in the bubble, which is on the grounds of the athletic facility. The bubble has been used as a fallback location for softball games when weather is poor. MSU planned to hold a spring football game in the bubble, which is also used for various practices. Athletic Director Andy Carter says the university is waiting for the company that supplied the bubble in 2016 to send representatives to assess the damage and determine how much it would cost to repair the bubble. KFGO Weather Center forecast, partly to mostly cloudy, winds picking up this afternoon, and we have a chance of sprinkles. Fargo-Moorhead. Meteorologist Tom Szymanski is expecting a high of about 42. Will stay cloudy, windy tonight. Areas of rain may be mixed with some light snow, 33. Tomorrow, areas of light snow or a mixture of rain, snow. Looks like a rain chance in the morning and decreasing clouds later in the day tomorrow, high of 50. Also near 50 Thursday, partly sunny. Windy Friday, showers likely, maybe thunder showers, and mid-50s. Fargo-Moorhead, mostly cloudy, 39 degrees. Paul Juergens, News Radio, KFGO.
We're going to get you caught up with your national news headlines with CBS. What's in store for you following that? We're heading up to Grand Forks, visiting with Greg Spicer, Frank Matichek. A little bit later on, we're talking national news. Dr. Thomas Ambrosio, the new offense, the attack from Russia that's going on in Ukraine. We'll get the latest from him on what that means and what the direction this war has taken. And so much more coming up. But first, CBS, you got locked into KFGO Fargo. Of this process, when we were all made aware of it, the public that is, about Grand Forks, Faulkner Township, Fufang, the ball being pushed so far along in the process, we made a promise that this platform of Afternoons Live would be available for those people that had questions and concerns to talk about it. And we keep our words, and that's why I'm happy to have back on this program Frank Matichek and Craig Spicer, whom, if you missed our conversation about a month or so ago, wherever you get your podcasts, including KFGO.com, you can find that conversation right there. But last night, there was a city council meeting in Grand Forks that had a series of proposals, planning, zoning, annexation. That was all part of the discussion about whether or not this is going to be moving forward. And by all indications, it is. Here to talk about that is Frank Matichek. This is my way of saying, Frank, do I got you loud and clear, man?
Yeah, you hear me?
I can hear you, Frank. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to start with you, and
then
I'll pull Craig into this conversation in just a moment here.
Sure.
Last night we had this the city meeting. Were you surprised by the way it unfolded?
Yeah, absolutely. They had it pretty well set up for us. That they were trying to do everything they could to not let people get in to speak, because they were a little worried because they threw out the initiated measure that the citizens of Grand Forks had got over 4,000 signatures for that were legal. They actually got over 5,000 signatures, but they legally over 4,700, I think, and they needed like 3,700 or 3,600. Don't quote me on those numbers, but they had more than enough signatures. And then the city attorney decided because he didn't like it or whatever, and he threw it out, basically through the city auditor's office. So there was a lot of people that wanted to speak on that last night. Plus they had the annexation. Plus they had the plat, the replat, and the rezoning. And then they had a PUD for the Fufeng factory. So it was the meeting started at 5:30, and I think it ended at about midnight.
Frank, you just said that you had enough valid signatures, and they still decided to throw this out? Because I had questioned that when the decision came down. They're like, well, there's some questions here. Let's throw it all out. So my understanding is there were enough valid signatures that would have got this thing on the ballot.
Oh, absolutely. There was more than enough signatures. And he had about a 30-page synopsis of why we had to throw him out or whatever. But the bulk of his argument was on an Ohio case. They always use previous cases to set a precedent for what they're going to do. And he didn't use North Dakota law, and he didn't use Grand Forks City Charter or any of that stuff, but he based it basically on this one ruling from Ohio that was allowing them to throw out having the election. So, but Craig maybe knows a little bit more about the signatures, because I'm in the township, so I wasn't even allowed to sign the petition. The petition was done by the city residents, and the city residents the reason they did this. They were upset about the way they were being treated, about the way that the city council was basically hiding information from them, and basically telling them, we're just going to do this and you don't have a say. And that rankles a lot of people in Grand Forks the wrong way. You don't want to do that.
No, I understand that. And in fact, a lot of people listening, whether they're in Grand Forks or if they're in Lisbon or you pick any community, I don't know why it wouldn't sit well with anybody, Frank. Before I pull Craig in, ask a little bit more about that. The annexation, you talk about you're in the township. Has the city of Grand Forks, now I know that in state law they've got the authority to do so, but again, being a good neighbor goes a long ways here. Did they reach out? Has there been any communication from the city council in Grand Forks to the Falconer Township officials?
None. We've had to initiate every meeting we've ever had with them or anything. They basically just said, the township's a little group here, and we're a big group, and we're going to take over. We're the big guys. But Faulkner Township has just about 90 businesses, and they have 248 residents, and it's a nice little township. We take care of our people as best we can, and this is like David and Goliath here, really. But and they're taking about 70 of the businesses. They're taking about 70 of the businesses for this annexation. So it's a big deal.
Well, I'm going to pull in one of those business owners and visit with Craig Spicer again. Sure. Craig, I appreciate you coming back on Afternoons Live. How you been?
I've been good. Yeah, nice to be here with you.
Well, Craig, Frank was just saying that of this annexation that looks to be going forward, I don't know that it's finalized yet, and I'll ask you about that. Are you one of the 70 or are you one of the 10 to 20 that's not going to be annexed by this plan?
No, I'm probably as close as you can get to this plan in the annexation process.
Okay.
Yeah, they're right in my backyard.
So they're telling you, look, you're going to become a part of the city of Grand Forks, whether you like it or not, huh, Craig?
That's right. Yeah, they're pushing it right down our throats, and we've been going along with everything, going to every meeting we could do, put every obstacle we could out there for them to make them work a little bit better with us, and they have not appreciated anything we've done as citizens. And I think the bottom line is they forgot that they work for the citizens of Grand Forks.
That seemed to be coming through loud and clear from the people that were allowed to give some comments last night is, look, we love this community. We've called it home. We work here. Why weren't we a part of this conversation until now? This is my observation from about 70 miles south here is it seems as though they've come together. They pushed this so far forward to where, look, there's no way we can get this stopped. And now here it is, and everyone else just has to deal with it, including you as a business owner that's not going to get annexed. Last time you and I spoke, we talked about your concern when it comes to specials or when it comes to the infrastructure that you're going to be asked to pay for because of just your sheer location. Have you had any resolution to that? Have you had any clarity of what's expected of you because they're doing this?
They've offered us a couple of different guideline things that they could put us on. They found some other funds, I guess they're called prairie dog funds, and I don't know if they've locked in on those or not, but they say that they're doing everything they can to make this annexation as easy on us as they can possibly bring it. But the truth of the matter is all of the tax money that we're taking and giving to them is going out the window to the Chinese Fufang plant.
Well, and when you throw out terms like prairie dog funds, that should catch everyone else's attention here in the North Dakota listening audience because that's state tax dollars. That's
right.
That's the money that was accumulated through oil and gas revenue, and then they finally were able to say, well, we'll sprinkle this out across the rest of the state. So, folks, if you're thinking about those projects that you've been waiting on in your community, and if they come back as a state and say, look, we don't have the funds, you know where some of that's allegedly going right now. Craig, as far as that next step, is there one for you? And I'm just asking you as the business owner, and I'll ask Frank from the township side, but as a business owner, is there anything left for you in your tool and toolbox?
Well, what we've finally gotten a hold of is we had to go outside the area to get an attorney. So we have an attorney, and I don't want to disclose who and
Sure.
where they're from, but basically through this whole process, as far back as I can remember, we put out in many, many different situations that we were looking for an attorney. And I don't know how much intimidation or how much pressure is on most of the attorneys in this area, but nobody seemed to want to take the case. They were either compromised or too busy. So we ran into a kind of a dead end, when we actually had a chance to maybe get something going a little better against them, and as hard as we tried, we could not secure an attorney. So,
and Craig, I'm curious: is this having to find this outside attorney? I'm guessing it's you as business owners and you up in that township that have had to. All right, let's pass this hat around, throw some money in, and let's try to find the best damn attorney that's able to do this. Is that how you're funding it?
That's partially how we're funding it, but what we have is we have a group that's come together. I think they're 1,500 strong now, maybe a little more than that. That we're called the Grand Forks Concerned Citizens of Fufang Project, okay. And we are securing donations from anybody and everybody that we can, and it's going very well. So very happy with that.
Okay, Craig, I'm going to switch back to Frank. Or you hold on the line there, Frank. I just asked Craig about the business side. You're part of the township, and it sounds as though look, you've had to initiate everything, albeit to basically have your hands slapped away, or whatever analogy you want to use. Anything left for you to be able to do?
Well, we have 30 days to protest and 30 days to do an injunction, but they haven't officially annexed the area yet. It's kind of like, the guy's going to do the crime, but you can't arrest him till he does the crime. You follow me? So yeah. We're kind of waiting for that to happen. We, on the other hand, we did have an excellent attorney right here in Grand Forks. However, he had some medical problems, and he had trials that he had to do, and so we couldn't get him. And like Craig, we had to go out of the area to get one. And I'll disclose we got an attorney out of Bismarck. I'm not going to say who it is, but we ended up having to get an attorney out of Bismarck to represent the township. which it's too bad. It's too bad because we have a really good attorney here in Grand Forks, but like I said, we have to respect the fact that he had medical and other trials to do. So
life, life doesn't stop for us even though we have passions for things.
Right,
I have no
right,
doubt there.
right.
Frank, I mean,
Yeah.
when
So,
you go ahead, Frank.
Well, we're exploring every avenue we can, to try to stop this. There's the state statute, and some of this stuff is kind of vague for townships. They have to inform us by registered or certified mail and a couple other things, which they have not done yet.
Yeah.
So, we'll go, and the city has to, like Craig here, they have to give him a 15-day notice to when they're going to do the annexation, and they haven't done that yet.
Okay.
But I'm sure they're planning on it. They'll get it done. But
Frank,
so they haven't finished everything yet, but they're working on it.
Well, Frank, I tell you what, because as I told you last time, this platform it's available to you, and I want to get up there, and I want to actually be a part of this conversation. So I got to let you go. I'm up against the clock here. But
yeah. I tell you what, you're invited anytime. You can come to. I'm in Craig's office. You can come up to my farm. There's plenty of other of the people that are getting annexed, and township residents that would be glad to talk to you, and city residents too. So anytime you want to come up, we'll show you where they're going to put the plant. We'll whatever you want, we'll get it. We'll make it available for you.
Very good, Frank. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate you and being in Fargo. Actually, being that concerned about us up here, I really appreciate that. Thanks a lot.
Well, thanks for your time, Frank. I'm going to give the final word to Craig here. Craig, you had said that you're looking for any help that's out there. As far is there a website you can direct them to, or is this one of those things people can do the Google and throw some money in the hat if they want?
It's a Facebook site, and it's called the Grand Forks Concerned Citizens of Fu Fang Project. Tyler.
All right, Craig, I appreciate it, man. You keep doing what you're doing up there, and I tell you what, same goes to you. I'll be in touch, because this thing there's a time frame here, and this is one of those things that got a lot of people attention. Appreciate your time, my man. You take care. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. We got Frank, we got Craig, and you know what? There's hundreds, thousands of other people that are just as concerned, and the fact of the way the whole approach has been to just say, look what we're doing to you. It's not right. And you know it, and you won't be appreciative wherever you're listening to me either. I got to get you this weather update. Messages pouring into the text club. I will get to all those right after this here on KFGO. if we're going to get there in the time allotted. For on this date, are we here? Is it coming right now? I thought it had a longer build. April 19th, 1980, Call Me by Blondie hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Held the top spot for 6 weeks. Here's something else. 35 years ago, the Simpsons cartoon first appeared as a series of shorts on the Tracy Ullman Show. Still going strong 35 years later. Oh, wait, there's more. One more for you. White Castle. Never been. I've seen the movie. 101st anniversary of The Slider. Innovation, a revolution in the cheeseburger industry. We'll talk about that. No, we won't, because I want your messages about what's going on in Grand Forks. Also, the libs of TikTok. What is it? I didn't think I cared until I found out the local connection right here in Fargo. I'll explain after this KFGO News.
KFGO News, mostly cloudy, 39 degrees. I'm Paul Jerkins. The State Patrol is investigating a crash on I-94 east of Moorhead, where a semi crossed the median and collided with a van traveling in the opposite lane. Patrol Sergeant Jesse Graybo.
The semi was westbound I-94 near mile marker 6. The semi went off the road, came through the median into the oncoming traffic, landing on top of a van. All things considered, folks were pretty lucky.
Graybo says it isn't known why the semi-driver crossed the median. The crash was reported shortly after 10 this morning west of the Highway 336 exchange. For the first time in nearly 2 years, masks are no longer mandatory at airports across the country after a federal judge struck down a national mandate. Fargo Airport Authority Executive Director Sean Doberstein says they got word from TSA last night that directive mandating face coverings had ended. He says there was a sense of relief at the airport, both amongst airport and TSA employees who had to enforce the mask mandate, which he says at times was a source of conflict. North Dakota's Department of Mineral Resources says the state's oil production remained flat in February. The state produced an average of just over 1 million barrels of oil daily in February. There are 38 drill rigs working now in North Dakota. North Dakota crude is bringing about $110 a barrel, up $34 from the February average. Senator Amy Klobuchar says a bill to protect children from furniture tip-over injuries is gaining support in Washington.
Klobuchar first introduced the bill in 2016 when an Egan boy died after a dresser toppled over while he was taking a nap. Klobuchar says the boy's family has been instrumental in raising awareness about the incident.
He was the apple of their eye, and the only thing I think that they will take solace in, having met them and worked with them, is the fact that they know they've saved the lives of other children.
The bipartisan bill now also has support in the House and aims to strengthen furniture safety standards by requiring companies to test their products for safety and stability before being sold.
KFGO News correspondent Scott Peterson. Fargo-Moorhead, wind picking up this afternoon. We have turned mostly cloudy now, and we may see some rain moving in tonight. 33 for the overnight low, maybe a rain-snow mix. Tomorrow, near 50, areas of light snow and or light rain in the morning, and then fewer clouds. Again, tomorrow's high near 50. Also, our high expected to be near 50 on Thursday, partly sunny. Windy Friday, looks like showers and maybe some thunder showers. KFGO meteorologist Tom Szymanski is expecting a high Friday of 55. Fargo-Moorhead, 39. Paul Jerkins, News Radio, KFGO.
Now we got it right. April 19th, 1980. Blondie. This was on a recent movie Joaquin Phoenix, I believe, was walking towards a disco hall. I do not recall, but I remember vividly that part of the movie. And I could have the wrong actor. I do not know. Do not quote me on it. I don't have that steel trap of a mind as others here. But if you remember what movie I'm talking about, let me know. 35270. That's the Consultants of North Dakota Text Club. I'm going to get back to that very club here. If you just joined us, we're up in Grand Forks. We're up in Faulkner Township. Places where, quite frankly, the state hasn't been. Or there haven't been enough conversations from people that are the conduits from that area to the state. And if they have been, they've been doing a very poor job, according to the residents up there, of listening and then doing anything. Is the reason why we have to have this conversation just a little bit further here is because when we talk about who's paying what when it comes to infrastructure there, the earlier conversation we had was that we're going to be taxing some of those businesses that we're going to annex from Faulkner Township, which is to the north of Grand Forks, and now by North Dakota law, those more populated areas, meaning like the Grand Forkses, the Minets, Fargos, you know what areas I'm talking about. They've got the ability to annex, I believe it's up to 2 miles of territory right around their city. And in this situation, it sounds like 70 businesses are going to be annexed for this corn mill plant. And the earlier report that I was getting was that, well, you're going to have a special assessor. You have to pay for the road. That's going to be probably paved, expanded, because we're going to have all these trucks coming and going. And now, granted, the number of those businesses, they've been established, ladies and gentlemen. They don't need that infrastructure, but they were going to be asked to pay for it. But now we're hearing from Craig that they're hearing, perhaps that Prairie Dog bill, meaning that Operation Prairie Dog, remember that? Here's a quick reminder if you don't recall. And I don't fault you if you don't, because it passed a number of years ago, made promises, and then the market collapsed because of COVID, and those promises never came to be until now. That you've got this oil and gas development here that's putting money aside in a legacy fund, other parts of it's going to A, B, and C funds. This is that new fund or that new bucket that collects some of that tax dollar from oil and gas development instead of just reinvesting that into the oil patch, which certainly was needed for a very long time, that they're going to start spending that outside those counties that were not directly impacted. Not saying they didn't have any impact, but they weren't directly impacted by oil and gas development. So if whether you're listening to Richland County, Pembina, wherever, you're starting to get a little sliver of that money that is going into the state. That's now being used by reports for this. So my question becomes, how much state money is being put in and promised for this project? I think it's a fair question. We're all paying in, directly or indirectly. How much has been agreed upon, whether it's through the Department of Commerce or through the governor's office, which is below or which is above the Department of Commerce? Who's shaking the hands? Who's writing down on the dotted line saying, this is what we can do for you if you come here? What's the sweetheart deal that's been provided? 35270. I'm going to go to your thoughts that have been coming in. Tyler, this deal in Grand Forks sounds like the Fargo Dome debacle. I've been involved in that since the beginning. Hide information, manipulate info, and get it so far down the road that there's no turning back. Sad, they say. Now, I'm quite naive on the debacle when it comes to some of the Fargo Dome. I know that the return on it, for some of it now, all these years later, it's been good for the town. You think about it, if you get some of those large concerts, that pack, you take an Elton John or whatever, you got people from all over the area, people flying in from California, for example, which I know because I ran into them at Elton John, saying, hey, it was more affordable to come buy a ticket here, to fly out here, to stay here, shop here, than it is out in California. I think some of that comes back to pay for itself. It's not unlike the conversation we had when it comes to financing through, public dollars, sports complexes. Where do you draw the line? Do you get enough return on the investment? Now there's going to be people saying, well, Tyler, that could be done up in Grand Forks with this plant as well. That might be the case long, long down the road, but though that immediate impact right now for the residents and the lack of, quite frankly, respect that they've gotten through this whole process is what has got me so worked up about it. Again, I keep coming back to, you got people out in Bismarck that want that pat on the back, that congratulations, even though we don't know how much they agreed upon. Was it a good deal for all of us? How much we pay into this project? They've been saying, look what we're doing for you, instead of listening to those residents to understand what they are doing to them. And that's where leadership has failed here. Tyler, once again, this issue shows how worthless the North Dakota Attorney General's office is. That comes in. Well, now with Drew Wrigley out there, I'm not sure where the issue would be the challenge for the Attorney General's office. Because the way I understand, at least the annexation part, I mean, they're adhering to what is allowed in law. So I'm not sure what the next process is. In fact, they're paying attorneys to figure that out for them. They don't need me as a talk show host to say, hey, you should go do this, or have you considered that? If it comes down to, hey, there's a challenge here and it's got to go before the Attorney General, well, then we can certainly have that conversation. Another one for you. Tyler, not in my backyard. Typical North Dakota. Lack of forward-thinking attitude. It's not their land, none of their business. There are hundreds of areas in the state of North Dakota that would die for this kind of economic development. See, now, the not in my backyard conversation that comes up, whether it's here, Castleton, you think about some of the pipeline stuff, you think about the hog farm situation. I know that this is a 351 area up in Devil's Lake. I recall that having a whole topic of conversation as well about hog farms and backyards or near big bodies of water. It's one of those things I understand that we get frustrated if we're not in that area, but it's a lot easier to point fingers saying, why can't you guys just put up with this when you're also not the one being impacted by it? You might be receiving the benefit, but what costs are you putting into it as well? I'm just curious. Maybe you live in the Grand Forks area and I'm completely naive, and if that's the case, I'd love to give you an opportunity to explain that as well. Tyler, read that text again. Fargo Dam. My apologies. I'm new to the job. Sometimes I don't know what to do. The Fargo Dam, meaning the Fargo diversion. Okay, well, I'll go reiterate and rehash that out after I get you caught up with some of these messages. You can join the conversation by Elaney's studio line as well. In fact, I see the phone lines blowing up at 237-594. I'll come back to you. You stay on hold. I'm coming back right after this here on Afternoons Live. You got it locked into KFGO Fargo. Don't go anywhere. But we take phone calls first, and Lonnie has called in, and he's been very patient through the break there. Lonnie, appreciate your patience. How you doing, man?
Yep. Thanks, Tyler, for having me on.
Yeah, you bet.
I'm glad you brought up the concept of the pig farm at Devil's Lake a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall, did they reject the hog farm because of pollution problems?
No. I remember it being a big, what do you call that, a scuttlebutt? Is that the proper term? And I remember people saying that this would be too close to the lake. The smell is going to be horrible. There's a tourist town. That's the extent to what I remember, Lonnie. You got more information for me?
Yes, I was at the meeting last night, and the engineer for AE2S said that they are having trouble understanding how they can remediate the sulfate problems, whether it be hydrogen sulfide stink or sulfate release into the Red River. So
yeah, go ahead.
So I said when I was at the zoning and planning meeting the week before the city council meeting, I told them that you're going to have to build a constructed wetland like Hillsborough Beet Plant has, because there's no way they're going to contain it inside of a roof or with aerators when it's January and February.
Right.
So I would say that they're treating the Red River like a sewer.
Well, yeah, Lonnie, and that's when we've had the conversation earlier, when I first dove into this, that was one of the big concerns. You know, I know that there's about 4 different angles that people take to this project that they're concerned with. The one of them has been exactly what you're talking about. You've got this water coming in, you're going to use X amount. Well, you got wastewater. Where are you going to put it? Now, my understanding is they're claiming, hey, look, we've got our own means. We're going to treat it, but there's also the excess. So, I mean, have they put pen to paper and said we will not? Or do we have law saying you cannot put this into the red? What the excess? Because I think what you're saying is that pollution, that contamination, then what?
Right. My analogy was Devil's Lake. Would they want that to pollute Devil's Lake if they got the plant? Because the city council president said that Devil's Lake has the water too, and they would have the natural gas too. So the analogy would be logically determined that the Red River will end up polluting Lake Winnipeg.
Oh, now we're pulling in a whole other country into this thing. I'm sure that.
Right, and it's a 1906 Boundary Waters Treaty, which says you can't pollute the other country's waters.
Yeah. Well, and I now recall here, or help me recall, because I mean we've talked about moving water from west to east, and then they talk about well, you're going to have Canada. They've been putting up a fight about that, and we're talking about some, I think, needed drinking and water to use. So they have not exactly been neighborly in this process because of their concerns. So you add this to the mix, I bet you the conversation hasn't even been brought up that far, Lonnie.
Right, but the ultimate outcome was that even though they don't know how they're going to handle the pollution, they annexed Frank's land or his township's land.
Yeah, Lonnie, it's frustrating. And now the way I understand the land up there too is some of the best farmland a guy can ask for.
Right. Grand Forks County needs all the good farmland they can get because of the alkali flats where I'm calling you from right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, Lonnie, I appreciate you added a lot to the conversation, a lot of details.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thanks for calling in. I appreciate you listening up there. It's the questions that were raised as early as what residents could start raising them because they didn't know about it until they heard about it through news. I get the sense. And I don't care if you've got city council members, you got the mayor, or you got lawmakers listening to me, which I know some of them are, is you've got concerned residents doing your job, and they're doing it for free because they're concerned about their home, about their business, about their community. The question is, what are we paying you for? If you're not going to be doing some of this, we're not going to be hosting these meetings. And one thing that stood out early for me is when I asked, well, what's the next process? At some point, you're going to come to an end line here in which there are no other options for these residents to be heard except for at the ballot box. And it might not come in the form of an initiated measure because you got the city attorneys and the auditors saying, nope, can't do it, won't do it. Well, there's re-elections that come up. And there's a lot of people hitching on to this project, probably for higher office aspirations, because they're part of, quite frankly, the Burgum Good Old Boys network that he's created after he told you he was going to get rid of the old one, which, same old boss. I mean, look who he's surrounded himself with. That I don't know that you're going to be elected in some of these city capacities the way of which you've handled this. I'm thinking about Mayor Bochensky up there as well in this whole conversation. He's been on the show. I don't know that my producer's going to invite him back on to allow him to speak his piece on this. But I don't know if you've been listening well enough to those that have elected you in the first time. And if you keep pushing, I don't know that they'll send you back to office. We'll switch gears, talk Ukraine right after this KFGO News.
News and weather this hour brought to you by Muscatel Pre-Owned. Muscatel's was voted #1 by LocalsLoveUs.com for good reason. So stop in today to Muscatel Pre-Owned, just off exit 1 in Moorhead.
Fargo-Moorhead, it is cloudy, 38. I'm Paul Jergens. A collision between a semi and a van on I-94 east of Moorhead this morning. It happened after 10 in the eastbound lane west of the Highway 336 interchange. State Patrol Sergeant Jesse Grabo says there were injuries, but it is not believed that they were life-threatening. Grabo says a semi was headed west when it crossed the median and rolled onto the van that was eastbound. The semi ended up on its side. A Horace man has been sentenced to 5 years in prison for a series of business burglaries in West Fargo and elsewhere in Cass County. A district judge sentenced 24-year-old Shelby Witt after he pleaded guilty to 20 burglaries. The break-ins took place over several months. Witt was arrested in March. Assistant Cass County State's Attorney Kim Hegvik says Witt was cooperative during the investigation, leading to the closing of several unsolved burglaries and the identity of additional suspects. The case was investigated by West Fargo and Fargo Police and the Cass County Sheriff's Office. The Fargo City Commissioners voted unanimously to appoint Assistant City Administrator Michael Redlinger as interim city administrator in late June. He'll step in after Bruce Grubb retires. Redlinger has been in his current role since 2016 and came to Fargo after being city manager in Moorhead. Mayor Mahoney says because it's an election year, it'll be up to the new city commission to find a permanent city administrator.
My presumption would be the new commission, once it's formed, can have discussion about the position of city administrator, change it, do different things they may like, and then we'd advertise nationally for an administrator.
Grubb announced his retirement last week after over 30 years with the city. Mostly cloudy, 38. This is KFGO News. 38 degrees. This is KFGO News. Police in Minot have identified a woman who was found dead near the post office during last week's snowstorm. Police say they believe 73-year-old Barbara Campbell of Minot laid down in the snow sometime late Wednesday or early Thursday. She may have been dealing with mental health challenges. Her body was discovered on Thursday morning. Lawmakers are back in St. Paul after their Easter break for the final stretch of the regular legislative session, which must finish by May 23rd. House Democrats are preparing to pass their bills on how to spend the $9 billion budget surplus. Majority Leader Ryan Winkler.
Next week on Monday, we anticipate starting moving forward the supplemental budget bills on the floor.
House Democrats and Senate Republicans remain far apart on tax relief, education spending, and public safety. Fargo-Moorhead, cloudy for the balance of the afternoon. We may see a few sprinkles in and around the FM area. Maybe 42, cloudy, windy tonight. Areas of light rain. That rain may mix with or convert to light snow. KFGO meteorologist Tom Shemansky is expecting a low of 33. 50 then tomorrow. Areas of light snow, maybe some light rain in the morning. Partly sunny for Thursday, also near 50. Mid-50s Friday, windy, showers likely, maybe some thunder showers. And Saturday, windy, showers appear likely, possible thunder showers again. We'll see a high of about 62, and then temperatures steady or slowly falling. Fargo-Moorhead, 38. Paul Juergens, News Radio KFGO.
A great suggestion into the text club. I don't want to thank Lonnie for calling in and walking through where, quite frankly, we all know where the waters go, but making the dots connect for me. In my little mind here in the KFGO studio, sponsored by Gunderson's. I appreciate them sponsoring this. While getting that Canadian perspective on this. Curious if anyone up in Grand Forks on that city council, or in fact, if the state of North Dakota has done that yet. We'll do our due diligence, and I appreciate that recommendation. We'll have Eric Johnson, my producer, reach on out. He'll sleuth around and see who should be on these airwaves. Here's what's coming up on these airwaves. We got CBS National News. When we come back, Dr. Thomas Ambrosio. Russia's got a new offensive in the eastern side of Ukraine. You've heard the talks of genocide, war crimes, nuclear threats from Russia, the Russian warship. Finland, Sweden, are they going to join NATO? What does that mean for this whole conflict? He'll break it down for us next year on Afternoons Live. You got it locked into KFGO Fargo. Along the war in Ukraine that has drug on, and quite frankly, the more images and information that's come out has gotten more difficult to swallow as you're watching this war seemingly escalate when it comes to attacks on civilians and what is being done from Russia. In fact, earlier today, they talked about a new offensive starting from Russia and parts of Ukraine. And here to break it down for us is Dr. Thomas Ambrosio. He's a political science professor, up at North Dakota State University, a friend of the show here. Dr. Ambrosio, I appreciate you taking time. I know you just got done with class. How are you doing?
Good. Glad to be here.
This new offensive going on, what's this mean? People are saying it's a new phase in the war. When they say that, what are they trying to indicate?
Yeah, I think it's actually a good way to phrase it. So phase one was kind of this attempted lightning strike, again, to make kind of overwhelm the Ukrainian government and in hopes that it surrenders. Of course, we had the multiple attacks against Kyiv and the attempt to capture the capital. But the Russians were overextended. They attacked on too many fronts, and they simply could not pull it off. So they withdrew from around Kyiv as well as other areas in the kind of the northern part of the country, and now they're focusing on what was, in some ways, their at least stated war aim, which is securing the Russian populated areas in the east. And then, of course, linking that to Crimea, which they seized in 2014.
So now more of their attention on, as I'm glad you said, stated initial purpose of doing this. They're going to refocus on that area. And I'm curious because it seemed as though because things weren't going that way, that word out of the Kremlin was, well, we're going to refocus this. If they were able to accomplish taking that area and controlling it, do you see an end in sight of this whole crisis? I know that Ukraine says, look, we're not giving an inch. But is that the way in your mind as you observe this, that this thing might, okay, here's the new line, it's done?
I actually think then you'll start to see the Russians have... So what we're talking about here is these breakaway republics in the eastern part of the country that were populated by Russians. And they have been de facto independent from Ukraine since 2014, but not all the territory in these two areas, in the Donetsk and Luhansk provinces, which we collectively call the Donbass. Not all of that was under kind of Russian control. So this current war seems to be, or this phase of it, seems to be an attempt to push and take those two areas, basically unify the entire eastern part of the country. And at that point, I think the Russians will be like, okay, now we're willing to sit down and talk about a ceasefire. Now, the Ukrainians will never officially give up this territory, but a ceasefire helps Russia because essentially it creates a new status quo. And even if it's not recognized as being separate, it's going to be in reality separate from Ukrainian control.
During a CBS News report earlier today, when we talk about now focus being there in their capital city in Kiev, it sounds like life is almost becoming, I don't want to say it's not back to normal, but I mean, taxis are moving around out there. With this going back towards the east, do you think, because it seemed to me, and I'm trying to find my language here of how I get to this question, that Russia wanted to break them, they wanted to hurry up, end this. There's not a will to stop and just surrender from the capital, but I'm sure there's an exhaustion going on. Do you sense at all that, well, if things get back to as normal as possible in other parts of the country, that even though not recognizing that there would be okay, well, look, we're all tired, we're done here, or is this thing just, now it's in the diplomatic phase? I don't know if there's a question in there, so to speak.
No, I think there is one. Okay. Yeah, no, I think actually, I think you're right. So will Ukraine be like, okay, we're done with this war?
Yeah, there you go.
Or at least for now, and basically sue or have some type of a settlement that creates essentially a new status quo, a new kind of situation on the ground. And I think there might be some willingness from some people to do that. But of course, Ukrainians at this point, we have a couple of things. One, their nationalism is really high, which of course will make it harder to compromise with Russia. Two, I think they can win. or at least hold off the Russians enough or inflict enough pain on them so that they can get a peace maybe on their terms rather than on Russian terms. And essentially, if Russia gets what it wants in the East and then sues for peace, they basically get not everything, but they get a fallback option. They basically kind of what I had been calling the medium outcome for them. They didn't get, the whole of Ukraine, or even half of Ukraine, but they actually got a significant win ultimately. But then I think we also have to think about how the West is portraying this. And you're starting to see increasing, even if it's not openly spoken, an increasing desire from some people in the West to drag this out and have the Ukrainians essentially fight on our behalf against Russia and weaken Russia. You have some people talking about, well, this is going to be the new Afghanistan for Russia. We're going to weaken it. Of course, that means that it's kind of like the Cold War all over again, in which we had these pawns. We didn't care about the pawns so much. We cared about what it did to the other side. And that's, I think, kind of more dangerous. But so there might not even be an interest from the West in a diplomatic solution.
Well,
you think we want to end the fighting, but actually we may want to keep it going.
Well, and that's I saw that the Biden administration announced, I think, within the last 2 hours that we're sending more artillery, more munitions over there to keep that fighting going and allow Ukrainians to defend themselves. There's been accusations from that same administration. I'm curious if you agree about genocide, that Putin's committing genocide. Do you agree to that categorization?
No. I don't think there's any evidence at this point that Russia has committed genocide. Genocide has a very specific definition, a very high bar to prove. And actually, I'm teaching international criminal law class, and we're talking about genocide today. And now, have they committed war crimes? Yes. Have they committed crimes against humanity? Yes. There's no question about that. But genocide is a political term. It's a legal term, but it's also more used politically. It's used rhetorically. It's used to kind of paint one side as the absolute victims and the other side as kind of implacably evil. And in terms of the legal definition, we haven't seen any evidence of it right now. Again, crimes against humanity, not a question. War crimes, not a question. Those have definitely been committed here. But genocide is so specific that I think it's used too flippantly. Certainly for my taste, as someone who teaches international criminal law.
Dr. Thomas Ambrosio, our guest at North Dakota State University, the political science professor, talking Russia, Ukraine. Finland and Sweden have now teased that, well, we're considering about joining NATO too.
Yeah.
I'm curious what that does for this conflict, because it seems abundantly clear that one of the things that Putin does not want is new members in NATO. Does this give him another out to say, look, they're growing against us here in Russia? Does this build his case?
Yeah, I mean, that's how they'll spin it. They'll spin it as NATO is marching towards us again, and now the border between Russia and NATO would expand exponentially, because Finland's a pretty large country on its east. Of course, Russia's going to it's almost like a Twilight Zone episode. You do something and you actually get the absolute opposite of what you wanted. So by trying to stop NATO expansion, Russia's going to probably get NATO expansion. And Russia has started making claims that it's going to start putting nuclear weapons on the border, and that it's going to react in a very hostile way. But that's actually, I think, fueling Sweden and Finland to say, we need to join NATO now because we can't trust this country to be reasonable. That's near us. We can't trust Russia. We need the protection of NATO, and in particular, what we're really talking about here is the United States.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that leads to my final question before I let you get back after it. There is the threat of nuclear weapons. They've risen it again from Russia. Do you take that serious? Is that something that we should be paying attention to, or is this just kind of a saber rattling, so to speak?
I think it's saber rattling. The Russians do have a doctrine of escalate to de-escalate. In other words, you could potentially use a small weapon in order to get the other side to back down. I don't see it in this situation, but I think the Russians are trying to just make it clear that it's kind of their way of kind of lashing out at least in terms of kind of how they're framing things, and to start drawing red lines. But ultimately, they're not talking about it's war if Finland and Sweden join. I guess yesterday or the day before, the Russians had their nuclear bombers fly near Ukraine to kind of send messages, but it's worrying in the sense that what you can imagine, what if the Kremlin gets so desperate, they feel no other way out? But I mean, I would hope they would never even think about going down that road, because then that is something that's hard to contemplate.
Yeah, very much so. I appreciate you always taking some time breaking this down for us on the latest, and I have no doubt we'll be calling you again. But I know you're just out of class. I'll let you get settled in, and we'll talk again soon, all right?
Great. Thank you.
Yeah,
Take
thank
care.
you. Yeah, you do the same. Dr. Thomas Ambrosio, NDSU professor of political science. Got to get you this weather update from Too Tall Tom Schmansky. Some people taking me to task in the text club. I'll come back. I'll address that right after this here on KFGO. Now, earlier today on It Takes Two, they did their meat raffle drawing, their final one on It Takes Two. We've got one more opportunity for you here on Afternoons Live. This Thursday, it's the final meat raffle drawing. All you have to do, if you have not registered, text in MEAT, M-E-A-T, to 35270. And then be listening after our conversation with Spencer Worth, the meat dude. It's our final drawing. And then, you know what? We're throwing a party Thursday night over at Bar 9. We're doing a Traeger giveaway. Many of you that have registered, and there are a lot of you, many of you have probably got something in your mail today and or tomorrow about you getting invited because you're a finalist. There's still an opportunity to get registered for the grill, of which I am looking at right now. Beautiful. Got that bronze outside. The smoker, it's all assembled. Now, fair warning, it was assembled by the News and Views team, but I have no doubt they followed the instructions because Abby Miller was there. But you can get registered for that by going to kfgo.com, click on the Gear Up for Grilling, or all you got to do, you got your smartphone, because I see you texting already, 35270 is the short code. Text the word MEAT and be listening on Thursday during Afternoons Live and get out to Bar 9 Thursday evening. When we come back after KFGO News, Sarah Heinrich, our Farm and Ranch Director, let's talk about how they're shaping up out there when it comes to cattle following the feet of snow that some of the parts of North Dakota got. That's right after this.
KFGO News, mostly cloudy, windy, and 38 degrees. I'm Paul Jerkins. Governor Doug Burgum has signed a memorandum of understanding with 25 other governors to create the American Governors Border Strike Force to address illegal crossings at the U.S.-Mexico border and what they say are the negative effects of increased illegal immigration and public safety. Burgum says the Biden administration is failing to deal with the crisis at the southern border, and states are coming together to share information, coordinate law enforcement training, and review current laws to protect U.S. citizens from the consequences of record-breaking immigration and ensure that drug trafficking, human trafficking, and other border-related crimes are investigated and punished. The superintendent of the North Dakota Highway Patrol will serve as the state's representative to the Border Strike Force. A close call today for the driver of a cargo van on I-94 east of Moorhead. State Patrol Sergeant Jesse Grabo says a semi collided with the van on eastbound I-94 west of the Highway 336 interchange.
Two vehicles, one of those being a passenger vehicle, a van, and a semi-truck. The semi was westbound I-94 near mile marker 6. The semi went off the road, came through the median into the oncoming traffic, landing on top of a van. Crash remains under investigation. We believe it's non-life-threatening injuries, but still sounds like, all things considered, folks were pretty lucky for the most part for what went down. Again, the crash remains under investigation.
Troopers and crash reconstruction investigators will try to determine why the semi crossed the median. West Fargo Police Chief Dennis Otterness says even as the city continues to grow, there's been a decrease in overall crime. In the department's 2021 annual report, Otterness said there was a slight increase in crimes against persons, but the overall crime rate was down about 8% compared to 2020. Property crimes dropped 10% last year. Police officers handled more than 28,000 calls for service in West Fargo. The Corps of Engineers is asking for public comment on a draft environmental assessment of a proposed cooling pond at a northeastern North Dakota military radar station. The proposed project includes a 23 million-gallon pond and pipeline, pump station, and water quality maintenance system for the Perimeter Acquisition Radar Attack Characterization System at Cavalier Space Force Station. That project would provide a backup to ensure that enough water is available if the current cooling system fails. The military radar installation was established in the Cold War era to track enemy ballistic missiles. Fargo-Moorhead will be cloudy, windy overnight, some rain moving in, light rain it appears, and eventually may mix with some light snow. We expect a low of about 33, southeast wind 15 to 35 miles an hour. Tomorrow, areas of light snow, maybe some light rain in the morning, and then decreasing clouds about 50. Also, our high near 50 degrees on Thursday, partly sunny. Windy Friday, showers likely, perhaps thunder showers near 55. Saturday, windy, showers likely, and maybe thunder showers once again. We'll see a high of about 62, and then temperatures steady or slowly falling Saturday afternoon. Sunday, windy, scattered rain and or snow showers, and 41. Mostly cloudy, 38. Paul Jerkins, News Radio, KFGO.
KFGO time is 4:24 Tuesday afternoon. One thing that we will have to dive into, and we don't have enough time right now, is I just heard Paul Jurgens in the KFGO News Center at the top of the hour, and I know the narrow window that we had for Sarah Heinrich there about Governor Burgum joining and signing North Dakota up for a group of, is it 25 governors, about concerns at the southern border. We'll have a conversation about that in just a little bit, because it seems more political when I look at the names of who did sign on to what about that. It's just interesting, I would say, because it wasn't very long ago in which we heard about the tragic family passing away on the northern border coming across from Canada, and yet there wasn't a whole lot of conversation about that at all when it comes to government officials. So it's just, there's some politics being played there. 35270. There's a number of messages in it. I've griped about this stupid system enough, but there's one that I would love to read, but it's in about 10 different lines, so I apologize for you sending it in about Russia. I'm not going to get to that, but I was talking about the fact that somebody's calling me a hypocritical, POS, and you can fill out the rest there because of I'm going because of the failed approach up in Grand Forks, and they're saying, well, why are you okay with that versus what's going on with this Fargo diversion and when it comes to farmland being taken? And that's in quotes. And I said that these two projects completely different. And this message came in response to my response to that. Tyler, there is not a difference when it is your good farmland being taken by eminent domain to protect people downstream. This happened to us with the Maple River Dam. Sacrifice the few to benefit the many. The one thing that, when I talk about this diversion, and when I'm looking at people further to the west and they're looking at what the sweetheart deal was, and I will say it's the sweetheart deal for, say, the Oxbow area, I would be angry too. I would be asking and looking and saying, if they got this, why are we not getting a fair and equal shot here when it comes to compensation here? Now, again, why I say that the two are different is because you have one that's going to a private business, and our state dollars going towards it. We just heard that the prairie dog funding is now going to be a part of building the infrastructure up in Grand Forks for that private business to benefit. And then you got flood protection for the largest metro area. That's why I think these two are not exactly the same. This is not apples to apples, apples to oranges is how I'd categorize this situation. 35270. Tyler, I bet your list of governors is 100% Republicans. I'll have to go through this press release that was sent from the governor's office, but yeah, I'm going to say you're probably 100% accurate on that. KFGO News right around the corner. In fact, I'm sure you hear a little bit more about this from Paul Jurgens. Final half hour, whatever you want to get off your chest, I'm here for you. This is Afternoons Live on KFGO.
News and weather this hour brought to you by Otter Tail Power Company, positively impacting communities they serve for more than a century.
Cloudy, Fargo-Moorhead, 38 degrees. I'm Paul Jerkins. A collision between a semi and a cargo van on I-94 east of Moorhead this morning. It happened after 10 in the eastbound lane west of the Highway 336 interchange. State Patrol Sergeant Jesse Grabo tells KFGO News there were injuries, but it's not believed they were life-threatening. Both drivers were taken to a Fargo hospital. Grabo says the semi was headed west when it crossed the median and rolled onto the van that was eastbound. The semi ended up on its side. Senator Amy Klobuchar says a bill to protect children from furniture tip-over injuries is gaining support in Washington.
Klobuchar first introduced the bill in 2016 when an Egan boy died after a dresser toppled over while he was taking a nap. Klobuchar says the boy's family has been instrumental in raising awareness about the incident.
He was the apple of their eye, and the only thing I think that they will take solace in, having met them and worked with them, is the fact that they know they've saved the lives of other children.
The bipartisan bill now also has support in the House and aims to strengthen furniture safety standards by requiring companies to test their products for safety and stability before being sold.
KFGO News correspondent Scott Peterson. 38 degrees. This is KFGO News. This is KFGO News. Minnesota's governor and U.S. senators have visited the heart of the state's poultry country for a first-hand look at how the state is fighting bird flu. Governor Walz and Senators Klobuchar and Smith visited an emergency operations center in Wilmer, where state and federal agencies are working to contain the outbreak. They say the state is better positioned now than during the 2015 outbreak, which killed 9 million birds. The current outbreak has cost Minnesota turkey and chicken producers nearly 2 million birds at 40 farms. It wasn't until the end of a 6-hour-long meeting that the Grand Forks City Council gave preliminary approval to annexing land for the proposed Fufeng project. During that session, the council was briefed on everything from odor and water to transportation, plus state participation in financing infrastructure needs for the corn milling plant. The council also heard public comments for those who were hoping to force a public vote on the project.
I had a chance to look at the sign that's behind you, City of Grand Forks, North Dakota, and what it says: liberty and union, now and forever one and inseparable. And I don't see any liberty or union in any of this, because you're not allowing the people to have a vote. And that's all we want, is the right to vote.
A public hearing on the annexation is tentatively scheduled for June 6th. The State Patrol has identified a man who died of injuries over the weekend in a snowmobile crash near Harvey, North Dakota, as 59-year-old Bradley Patzer of Harvey. He was test driving a snowmobile when he hit a berm of packed snow and ice. Police in Minot have identified a woman who was found dead near the post office last week during the blizzard. They believe 73-year-old Barbara Campbell of Minot laid down in the snow sometime late Wednesday or early Thursday. They say she may have been dealing with mental health challenges. The body was recovered on Thursday morning. The FBI is investigating a threat directed at Minneapolis City Council members. All 13 members of the council received the email. Part of the email read, "I will be planting bombs around a certain city council member's home." The email lists the names and addresses of 3 city council members. Fargo-Moorhead will be cloudy, windy tonight. KFGO meteorologist Tom Szymanski has light rain in his forecast, and perhaps a rain-snow mix, and then transition to light snow. 33 for the low. Tomorrow, light snow and or light rain in the morning, and then decreasing clouds in the afternoon, high of 50. Thursday, partly sunny, also near 50 degrees. Windy Friday, showers, maybe thunder showers, and 55. Fargo-Moorhead, cloudy and 38 degrees. Paul Jergens, News Radio, KFGO.
Did you hear those 2 seconds of dead air Felt a lot longer than that, didn't it? That was suspense. That's how we'll say that was suspense. Eric Johnson got a little flush in the face back there. Smooth move.
It was
Hey,
a last minute brainstorm because of what you said offhandedly off air.
Smooth execution, nailed it. Somebody said, Tyler, I just like to say a shout out to the Timberwolves tonight. Yes, shout out to the Timberwolves. Game 2. I can't believe it's only game 2. What have they been doing this entire time down in Memphis? What was first game was Saturday?
Yeah.
So now it's Tuesday and it's game 2 of a 7-game series?
Yep.
NBA, come on.
No travel in between.
No,
so just
that's
hanging out in
what have you
Memphis.
been doing? It's walking in Memphis. That's the opportunity we missed.
10 feet.
We come back with walking in Memphis. Because that's all they've been doing. Walking around. They got a game tonight. In fact, you're going to be able to catch that at 6 o'clock. 740 The Fan, our sister station's got Timberwolves right here on KFGL. We're your home for Twins. 6:30 pregame. We're at Kansas City taking on the Royals. That's tonight and tomorrow night. We got the Twins here. You're Chris Atterbury at 6:30. That's following The Drive with Jack Sunday. We'll see what's coming up on his show in just a few moments tomorrow night as well. Thursday, well, we've got the Wild, and before that, we're going to be telling you to get on over to Bar 9 because that's where we're going to be hanging out for our Traeger giveaway. How about we get you caught up on some CBS national news headlines? We'll come back, and who knows what we'll talk about right after this on KFGO. They boarded the plane on like Friday of last week, the Timberwolves, to get to Memphis. And now they played one game. There's nothing else to be doing besides walking.
You can only go to Graceland so many times.
Once is enough, I imagine. I imagine this is all turned up. Well, can you imagine Anthony Edwards with his Beats or Apple Pods walking around? I highly doubt that Karl Anthony Towns is listening to Mark Cohen walking in Memphis just to pass the time, which they've had plenty on their hands, because it's game 2 tonight. 2-3 days, just all the time in the world. Why does the NBA do that? I mean, wouldn't you want to get the series out of the way, get to the next one? I mean, the longer she takes, the less interested I become. I mean, speaking from just one individual, I'm not alone in this.
No, in fact, an off-air caller was real concerned about why we're playing Wolves instead of Wild.
Oh, playoffs, man. We're talking playoffs here. Playoffs? Which coach was that again?
That was
Colts. Some 3-5-2-7. Who was playoffs?
Oh, I think I got it, but we'll see if the texters do.
You win nothing besides my praise. But yeah, if you help us. I keep thinking it's not Tony Dungy. I know it's not Tony Dungy. I can't think of the guy's name. I can picture the guy. He had the gray hair. That doesn't narrow it down when it comes to the NFL head coaches. In fact, there's a lawsuit about that out there. Some white guy with white hair. I don't remember. Somebody out there knows, because I think that was early 2000s, somewhere there. I think I remember watching it on like Around the Horn after high school. So we'll say that was early 2000s or late 90s. 237-594. Jim Mora, comes blasting in. That's what. Yep, thank you. How did I forget Jim Mora? It wasn't the Colts though, right? No, not Marvin Lewis. And thankfully nobody said Denny Green, because they are who we thought we were. We let them off the hook. There have been just stellar press conference just lines, those one-liners. I gotta add those to my soundboard over here and play those for you. Denny Green with one of the most memorable. That was a big collapse. I forget who he was for. Playing, was it the Bears and Cardinals?
Yep.
Boy, my memory is shot, but I still got a little bit to it.
And they played the Bears game 3 of the preseason, and that's what sparked, because they beat them, and Denny was alleging that game 3 matters, so they are who they thought they were, and he let them off the hook.
Well, now we have the whole story that I was unaware of. Tyler, the next game is they play after this is Friday at home. See, but there's a travel. I can respect hey, now, you know what? Go back to the hotel, pack up your 5 days worth of clothes, because we've been here for 5 days to play 2 games. And then, you know what? Get on the team bus. We'll provide Wendy's for you. I don't know what I know what we.
I mean, they're leaving. They're leaving Memphis, so hopefully there's some barbecue.
Yeah, get some of that good Memphis barbecue. Get some Popeyes. Isn't that? No, that's Louisiana. Yep, Never mind. We got your Wendy's for you, and I hope you all wanted the square patties, because that's what you're dealing with. Then we're gonna get home.
I mean, maybe today they get White Castle in honor of the 101st anniversary.
How many sliders do you think it would take to satisfy a basketball team in the NBA? Sliders, what? Those are like 2 bites and you're done?
Yeah, and a basketball team's 11 players, so carry the one.
Yeah, 11 people that are all 6'5" and above. Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of those White Castle sliders. Again, I've never had. I imagine not all it's cracked up to be. I've not done White Castle. I've not done Whataburger. There's another one that people, oh, God, you got to get out to California.
In-N-Out.
In-N-Out. Yep, none of the above.
I've had In-N-Out. Delicious. What I appreciate most about In-N-Out is that their level of cleanliness in restaurant is unparalleled.
That's how I started today's show, if you missed us. I said there's 3 types of you all out there if you have something wrong with your food. Those that will bring it back, those that will just throw it away, and the finishers. And if the cleanliness is part of the factor, okay, then we don't have to worry about it. But I appreciate that. They're going to be playing again Friday. So when does the NHL regular season wrap? I know that the Wild have clinched a playoff berth where they're probably going to be playing the Blues.
They've got 9 games
is
left.
Is it still 9 games?
Yeah, so I believe playoffs start mid-May.
9 games left there. And we got Twins tonight here on KFGO. One of the things that I've been waiting to get into, and I think this is going to be one side of the bracket for our Battle of the Bump songs on Friday, super groups.
Ooh.
Super groups is going to be one of them because there's a new super group out there that I haven't got a chance to. You know that I'm a grunge guy, right? We're talking Nirvana, Soundgarden. The list goes on there. Third Secret, new grunge supergroup that came out, and you got people from Soundgarden, Nirvana, Pearl Jam. You got the guitarist and drummer from Soundgarden, Chris Novoselic. I always trip over his.
I think that was close.
Close enough. I'm not going to repeat that. Novoselic. No, that was better. He's the bass, of course, from Nirvana. I would have to say, he's got the longest arms of any bass player I've ever seen in my life. And a couple other people with this new group that's out there. If you haven't listened to the song, we're not going to play it here because I haven't been able to make sure it's family friendly. Go do the Spotify or the YouTube. It's been out there for a little while now. Check it out because I'm going to talk about it at a later date, probably on Friday, if in fact the supergroup wins out of the Battle of the Bump songs, which we'll put a.
Might I suggest the other side of the bracket? Solo projects.
I'll consider that.
Solo projects.
That's a cold drop right now. Okay, supergroups versus solo projects. So we're thinking the front man, like, let's see here. Why can't I think of Journey's?
Yeah, Stephen Perry.
Stephen Perry.
Right. Or you can Phil Collins after he left Genesis.
Yeah.
You've got Paul McCartney after he left the Beatles.
Okay, I can get on board with this. I can get on board with this. Yeah.
Is it Dave Disdain from the lead singer of Stained? Why can I not think of his name right now? He's done a lot of solo stuff.
Yeah, I know. He's the bald dude.
Yep.
Yep. You know how great I am with names. I had to write down Novoselic.
But I think we could come up with a solid list of solo projects who left their band that made them famous.
Yeah. Okay, I wrote that down. I don't hate that idea as we are producing live on air, which is great radio for all you listening. You know what's important information for you? How about this weather update from Tom Szymanski? We'll get you the latest there. See what's coming up on the Drive Time News. Now with Jack Sunday as your host. Aaron Lewis comes in. Thank you. That follows Marvin Lewis that came in just moments before. Aaron Lewis, yes, the lead singer of Stained. Number of those. Yeah, we'll add a list. We'll leave it up to you, though. We'll have you vote as we did last week on what the theme for our Rock Request Friday is. I think supergroups versus solo projects is a good start to the week. I'm Tyler Axis, your host. The other guy, his name's Eric Johnson. He's our producer. We got about another 12 minutes with you right here on KFGO.
currently 39 degrees at the KFGO Studios. Final segment of Afternoons Live with Tyler Axton is coming up right after this.